Thanks so much for sticking around. We got awesome stuff to come up in Part B. Phil talks about the start of his European career, winning a stage of Tour de France and the white jacket for young rider, as well as racing with Lance Armstrong, among many other amazing stories. So obviously, you've joined the Peugeot team, I hope that's how you pronounce it, and in 81 you compete in your first Tour de France. Now you know what it is at that point, obviously not knowing when you started racing, as we touched on earlier. How'd you go in your first tour, and in particular, was it the stage 5 or stage 6 that you had particular success in?
Look, I didn't really know that much about the tour. Like, obviously it's the it's the pinnacle event of the year. My first year on the tour, as a pro on the Peugeot team, I knew when I signed that I wasn't going to be doing the tour. I was a young kid, I was like 21, and it wasn't on my program, and they told me that up front. But I knew the riders on the team, they all made a big fuss about it, so I knew that this was a big event. It's a bit like, I don't know, being a jockey and wanting to do the Melbourne Cup in Australia, or in the sport, or and being told, being part of a big stable or a big team of jockeys that you're not going to do it. If you know it up front, you're fine with it. Otherwise, you sign with another team if that's what you want. But I was told up front, I'm not expected to do it. Come to my second year, first year I won a couple of small events, and but by the second year I'd got some good results coming into the Tour de France. And the teams, all these teams that are in the tours, in the big tours, they all have, now they have 30 riders or 28 riders. Back then the teams were a bit small, so they had about 18, 20 riders. And so for the Tour de France, they only put 8 or 9 riders in the tour. So there's kind of a selection process within the team. So, I was going well leading into the tour, so there's a good chance I was going to be on the team. Won some tours coming in, and possibly one of the better riders in the team. So they put me in the team, and there's always like some of the older. I was like the only. I was like the only non-Frenchman on the team. So they were grumbling, that they should be picked before me or whatever. But anyway, I was just didn't care. Selected me on the team. That was great. I was on the team as even though I was winning races, my job there was to help some of the more senior riders, better riders on the team, and carrying water bottles and just doing. They call them domestiques. So demeaning kind of name, but the position. You have your team leaders, you have your captain on the team, then you have your domestiques. And then you have your managers and that who are in the car, your mechanics and so on, the masseurs and all that sort of stuff. But my job was a domestic. So my job was just, going back, getting water bottles when it's really hot. You have to drop back to the car. When you've got a bunch of riders and it's a really hot day, you might go through half a dozen bottles. So when the team leader or, one of the key players wants a drink, he'll snap his fingers and Anderson's to go back to car number 23 normally, the last car, and come back with a bunch of bottles. So you put them in your pockets, and down your shirt you might carry 9 bottles. That's 9 litres, or not 9 litres, no, it's possibly like 5 litres, but yeah, you take up to like 8 or 9 bottles, those big sort of water bottles. I don't have one here, but another job as a domestic is pushing them while they're taking a piss. That's real. That wasn't in the job description, actually.
It's unbelievable.
And, obviously, a bloke having a slash, while you're moving along, you can lose momentum, if there's much of a breeze. And, if you're not going downhill. So I think they called me to push them when they're having a piss, but it was mostly when they were going uphill, I think, and a crosswind. So you get bloody covered with piss. So, I think it's very few sports where that's part of it.
Yeah, it's not something you hear about too much as a bit of an outsider to the sport. What do you call it? The domestic, pushing the person taking a piss. Bit of an oddity in terms of cycling. But a question I've got, you mentioned it before. Obviously, you think of cycling in that era, you're like the Aussie guy, like you're the Australian cyclist, and with a bunch of Europeans just in the rest of the tour. What's it like being that only Aussie guy in people who don't necessarily speak English as a first language, and there might be a bit, who's this little prick coming from Australia trying to take our spots? Is there much kind of nervousness, anxiousness in regards to that?
Yeah, look, I think I was a bit of oblivious to it. We had a number of other riders on the team who weren't French. They weren't on the tour team, but we had Dutch riders, and we had that Scottish rider again, Robert Miller. We had an English rider, Graham Jones. And they were maybe more observant than me, but I made it on the team, and they didn't. But they sort of hear what's going on, and they spoke better French than I as well, because at the dinner table it was all French spoken, so I spoke a little bit of French. But yeah, look, I didn't really feel it. As my career progressed and I became a team leader, then there's people saying that I should have had more support from my teammates, and if I was French, I would have had better support. But anyway, going back to your question earlier about day 5 or day 6 or whatever. So it's my first Tour de France. You rock up on the start line. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, everybody in the team was always banging on about Tour de France is this. Like only 60% or 50% of the riders make it to Paris. 3 weeks sort of odyssey around the country, and you got all these mountain ranges and crashes and everything else. I didn't know what to bloody expect.
Did you have much experience on mountain ranges? Coming from Australia, we're not the most mountainous country.
No, not really. No, the Dandenongs. For me, Glenferrie Road was a bloody epic. A Hawthorne. But I'd ridden the Dandenongs but I'd never done it. I'd never seen snow or anything like that. I've never really been in the big mountains. So. So day 5, day 4 we had a team time trial. So it was an event where it's different than just an A to B stage. So that, the Tour de France goes for 3 weeks, and it's mostly just, stages which go from town to town. So this particular day, day 4 was a team time trial. So that's where the Peugeot team, the 8 of us head off together separately, and all the other teams are riding in their teams, and we all go off in our teams maybe 5 minutes apart or something like that. This particular stage 4, I think it was like 50 kilometres, and and you just rotate. You basically just try and get to the finish as a group as fast as possible. So, and they still have those stages now in the tour. They didn't have one this year in 2020, but there's always quite a bit of focus on that. So anyway, had I done one before? I might have done one when I was a kid back here. Done like they might have had the Victorian Championship team time trial or something like that, where you ride, the Hawthorne Club. But anyway, we just take off hell for leather, and it was down the south, down at a place called Carcassonne. So sort of start and finish there, and we went out and did a 50k loop. Anyway, our team, the Peugeot team, did very well. We got second. So I think it was like the Dutch TI Rally team came first. We came second. I don't know who else. So and you get the time that you ride. So if you do, if it takes you an hour, that's the time that you get on your on your results. So, and that's how the Tour de France works. It's basically just your aggregated, your total time that you've taken to do the entire lap of France. So you start together every day, and then sometimes you finish it together every day, but it's usually the mountains and things like these time trials that, split everybody up. So our team did very well. So being early on in the race, day 4, it's all kind of stacked, So when you look at the results after 4 days, because of the team time trial, it was like the rally, the Dutch team, they took the first 8 places, and then after that was the Peugeot riders, and then after that was maybe the team that got 3rd in the team time trial. So that was great. I'd moved from the back page up to the front page of the results, and then so the very next day we're heading into the Pyrenees. I'd heard of the Pyrenees, and the guys on the team were all very nervous about these mountains. And we had a good climber on the team, Jean René. He was our team leader, and
good French name that.
Yeah, very very French name, Jean René Bernadotte, and he was our humble leader. So I was preparing to be pissed on by in the mountains. So, but I remember it was like a 200 kilometre stage, finishing at a ski resort in the mountains, at this place called Plateau. And we had 4 mountain passes or 3 mountain passes plus this finish up this bloody ski resort. So I remember the first part of the stage was flat, and I just remember thundering along the road, with 200 riders, and they're going hell for leather. They're going like 60 k's an hour. It's almost like you think somebody's holding the finishing flag, 50 k's in, because they're going like hell for leather. And I'm trying to find a teammate and say, what the fuck's going on? There's a 200k stage, 150 k's to go. Where are these bloody mountains? And I'm looking up the road, you're looking over, sort of sitting up, and everybody's hunched down. You sort of stand up straight on the bike and look over. I can see the bloody mountains. My teammate, I'm trying to speak French, and he said, "No, feel. No, it's up there. You got to look up there, And I look up, and I can see above the clouds. I can see the top of these mountains. They're all bloody. They're sprinting because they know there's a corner coming up, and sure enough. After about a kilometre, we turned, between 2 houses down this narrow bloody goat path, which started climbing. And, I didn't know. Now everybody has GPS minutes and bloody radios, and they know what's going on. I don't know. It wasn't like there was a sign saying one tough climb coming up. So anyway, I buried my head and bloody put my head down and chase, but I might have moved up one place. But anyway, we got to that bottom corner, and sure enough, as soon as we got to that bottom corner of the first mount, everybody just strung out, and people were leaving gaps, and you'd sort of move out and move around somebody, and then somebody, you'd pass up with 5 guys, 6 guys, and anyway, everybody's leaving gaps, and there's all day, for that first mountain, I was just overtaking riders the whole time, and I never really saw the front, but by the time we crested the first mountain, it was maybe like a 15-kilometre climb. Half the field was already dropped. I was just at the tail end of what was left of the group. So there's maybe 100 riders left. We went down, whistling down this bloody mountain. It reminded me of going down bloody Sassafras, coming down a Fern Tree Gully. It was bloody fantastic. It was great. So, I passed a few riders and get to the bottom of the second climb. And the same thing happened again. There's like a thinning out of riders. And we get to the top of the second climb, and again, the size of the field had cut in half. So now we're down to 50 riders. I mean, whistling down a bloody mountain, it's fantastic. The narrow roads and, crowds and, it was you could see the towns way down in the valleys, and you have this just sense of 20 Ks, and you're reaching huge speeds, 60, 80 Ks an hour or something. It's really fantastic. And, you get to the bottom of the climb and start climbing. It's the penultimate climb now. And I started recognising some of the riders around me, from posters and things I had on my wall back in Melbourne. And, once again, riders are getting dropped and thinking, this is bloody great. And then all of a sudden, hear my team car, coming up from behind, with the director in it, the director's in the car, and winds the window down and says, Phil, Jean-Rene, where is he? You're meant to be looking after Jean-Rene. Jesus, where is he? And he said, his T group's back. You're meant to be looking after him today. And I'm thinking, shit, the piss has only just started drying. I say, look, I'm pretty buggered. I can wait for him. How far back is he? He said, no, he's 5 minutes back. You're our lead rider now. Like there's nobody in the next group. You stay there. But you come and see me tonight. You had instructions you're meant to follow, And I think, geez, okay. So, I put my head down and we get to the top of the penultimate climb, Col de Purissure. I couldn't remember the name of the climb. And, I didn't know any of the names of these climbs. I just following everybody else. And there's only like 15 riders left. I could see the front of the race from where I was, and the crowds are going nuts. And all the bloody champions there, the polka dot jersey and, the winner from the Tour de France the year before and real bloody heroes of mine. And there was this kid from Hawthorne with piss all over him. Anyway, we go down the bloody mountain. And, the bottom of the last climb, and there's a flurry of attacks, and a little Belgian guy went up the road, and I think he'd won the Tour like 4 years before, Lucien Van Dijk, a Belgian guy. And there's not many of us left. And the winner from the year previously, or the year before that, Bernard Hinault, looks to me as if I'm meant to chase this Belgian guy, I don't think he'd never seen me before, Bernard Hinault, and possibly thought I was just somebody from the crowd who jumped on my bike and jumped in the race. But anyway, it was sort of gesturing for me to chase this Belgian guy. But anyway, there was a few attacks, and in the end, we didn't catch that Belgian guy. In the end, it was just this guy, Bernard Hinault, and myself left. And there was a like I say, we didn't catch the Belgian guy, Lucien, but we so this guy Bernard Hinault and myself, we sprinted. He beat me to the line for this stage, but because the day before our team beat theirs and the Belgian guys, our team was better than theirs. That gave me the yellow jersey. So that was like day 5 of my first Tour de France, the kid from Hawthorne. And people often say, well, did you have to go and see the director that night? What did he say? And he was happy. And Jean-Rene came up to me after the race and said, Phil, I'm glad you didn't stay with me because I was having a shocker and you wouldn't have been able to help. Congratulated me and our careers sort of, paralleled each other for a number of years, which is great. But, from there, that was on day 5 or something like that. The next day, we had a time trial. So so I started the next day in the yellow jersey, and it was a time trial. You think there is a time trial for this thing, but it was a time trial down in the southwest, a place called Poa, and it was a little lap, I think. And you might have time trials sort of start on a podium. You go down this ramp, and being in the yellow jersey, you're the last rider to go because you start in reverse order of what you are in overall classification. So I was the last rider, and I'd never really ridden down one of these ramps before, because it's not that wide. And riding down this ramp, and all I was worried about was falling off that ramp to go into the crowd or something. But anyway, it was my first sort of Tour de France time trial, and people often say that the power that yellow jersey gives you, as the leader of the world's biggest race, the power that it kind of how it empowers you. And it was my first time trial, but because I was, leading the Tour de France, I put in a big effort and came up with coming third in that time trial, which is huge. I mean, I lost the jersey. Bernard Hinault, my mate from the day before, he got it off me after the time trial, but still he won the time trial. I got third, but still I was only like 20 seconds behind him or something. So for the next 10 days or something, I was trying to get the jersey back off him, in the race, and I failed, but I still, so I was in second place for like 10 days until we got the Alps, and ended up slipping to 10th, but so I finished my first Tour de France in 10th position.
I've got a bit of a question. So I heard on that fifth race that I'm not too sure who the other cyclist was, but he's one of the best in the world, and you might have offered him on one of the uphill parts. A cheeky Australian asked if he wanted a drink, a can of drink. Is that true?
Yeah, that's what that guy Bernard knows. So it wasn't on the last climb; it was the penultimate climb, the Périssur, they called it a Périssur or something. And I noticed, I'd never really ridden at the pointy end of the race like this, but I'm a quick learner though, so I noticed that it was quite a hot day, and what the riders would do would be somebody from the crowd would hand them a drink, like a can of water, a bottle of water, or a Coke or something like that, and guys would take a swig and pass it to the next rider across the the front. I thought, that must be one of the advantages of riding at the front, because all I have to do is get pissed on when I'm at the back. so I thought, gee, this is bloody great to be up here. So, on the penultimate climb, I noticed somebody just cracked a can of Coke and held it out, and I was on the right-hand side, and I thought, geez, I'll get some brownie points here. I'll offer to somebody, and I was about to take a swig of it, and I looked over, and it was this guy, Bernard Hinault, and he was in the polka dot jersey, which is the climber's jersey. And like I said, he was a hero of mine. He won the Tour de France. He'd already won it a couple of times. And I looked over at him, and he was like, had froth all, salt and bloody, he looked pretty buggered. So I thought, I'll offer him first swig, So he looked at me and that bloody Coke, and like I said before, he possibly wondered, who the hell am I? This kid, bloody lanky kid from bloody Hawthorn. And possibly thought, like I said, was just jumped out of the crowd or somebody, a spectator. You see all those people running along, and saw me with that Coke and just was disgusted and just knocked the Coke out of my hand, and bloody went up into the crowd like that. So, So that was the beginning of our fiery relationship, which really lasted, our entire career, because he was the guy that I was going to. He didn't realise that I was going to be the guy who was going to be, getting the yellow jersey from 45 minutes later, and fighting against for the next 2 weeks. So but anyway, he had a very successful career. He became world champion, I think, in '80. So that was he was possibly wearing the. He would have been wearing he was wearing the polka dot jersey, which is a classification like the yellow jersey. There's a climber's jersey as well. So he was wearing that, but he was actually world champion at the time. Bernard,
I love that story, and it sort of makes me think, because I think, in particular in Australia, I guess I played cricket growing up, sledging's such a massive part of the sport. And I guess in America and basketball, trash talking, does that happen much in cycling, or is it very much, I guess, a gentleman's game? Because obviously what you said there was a bit cheeky. Like, is that common, or do cyclists normally, you're pretty polite to one another? You don't try to get into any psychological warfare like that?
Yeah, it's possibly not so psychological, I don't think. No, it's possibly more physical. Yeah. Especially in sprints and things like that, you see them with the big bunch, and sometimes there's crashes and they're all bloody up against each other. just like in athletics, the sprinters, they're wired a little differently. Even like the Jamaican guys, all those sprinters, at that level, in the athletic sprinting, completely different than marathoners. And but in cycling, you've got the sprinters there as well, and you see those guys, and they're not just wired differently; they've got loose wires out there. They take risks. There'll be guys sprinting elbow to elbow, and somebody will come in between those elbows. You just have to have a crazy mind to big balls that get bloody come through those gaps, and very risky, and they risk their lives doing that shit. But so those guys are quite fiery, and you don't want to get in their way when they're getting ready for a sprint. I mean, if it's just a small group sprinting, it's one thing, but when you got 100 or 200 guys sprinting for the line, those top sprinters are pretty fiery. But there's not that much slagging,
So I think the next year in '82, you won the white jacket, the white jersey for best young rider, and obviously winning the yellow one just the year before. Can you tell us a bit about the kind of Australian reaction to your achievements, and if there was any media attention to it, and of course your own personal feelings, your personal pride in those achievements?
So the white jersey is the young riders prize, so it's sort of, I think it's like the highest place rider under 23 or whatever. So, and like the yellow jersey, you get it basically from day one, and it can change hands. And so I actually got I won a stage on like day 2. I won a stage in Nancy, so it's over in the northeast of France, over that way in the northeast, and got the yellow jersey, held the yellow jersey for like 10 days, and then lost it in the Pyrenees, and I got the white jersey because I was the leading rider under 24. So, and I basically kept that right through to Paris. So the Tour de France is the same time of year every year, and it's kind of falls right at the same time as Wimbledon, and so quite often you'll see the Australian press will go over and they'll do Wimbledon, and then they might go over to the Tour de France at the end of Wimbledon, because Wimbledon goes for like a week or 10 days, and when it finishes, it's still half the Tour de France to go. So back then there was, there would have been maybe a film crew. I think maybe Wide World of Sports, which was Channel 9, they would have come over. Since I was wearing yellow, they would have come over and done a bit. But they only sort of tagged on it because, they were over there for Wimbledon. They didn't really start showing the Tour de France on Aussie TV until about 90 or 91, when SBS, when television became a real thing in sport, international sport. It really changed. The Americans were there in sort of the mid-'80s, and then the Australians were like 5 years behind. And now, of course, Channel SBS, they had a crew over there every year, and they had the rights and all that sort of stuff. So it's changed quite a bit. But back then it would have been Channel 9. A couple of written press who were possibly only over there because of other sporting events, and they're told by their editor, there's some Aussie who's doing well in the Tour de France. Do you want to hop over there and do an interview or get some stories and get some bit of colour for that? I mean, now, you guys have grown up in a period where every July it's on TV, but back then there was very little. There was very little.
Yeah. So just moving forward to the 1985 season as a whole, you finished 5th in the Tour de France, and you never even finished outside the top 10 by then. So finishing the top 10 every season up until 1985, but you were winning like races left, right, and centre that year. Not just the Tour de France. You were winning all kinds of stuff. So just tell us about just the great form you were in, and just like absolutely killing it on the cycling scene, really.
Yeah, it was a big year. I was on a Dutch team now, so I was on Peugeot, and then the end of '83, went signed a contract with the Panasonic team. So they were out of Holland, out of Amsterdam. So we did the Tour de France, and we had a great team there. And actually, not just leading up to the Tour de France, heaps of other races. I was doing possibly my best season. It was about, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 wins throughout the year. One-day races, but also tours as well. And before the Tour de France, there's a big event called the Dauphiné, which is a sort of a lead-up event. It's maybe a week-long or a 10-day race. And I did well the year before, and it's always a bit of a sort of measuring stick prior to the Tour de France. So, I won that and won a couple of stages, and then went from there. We went to do the Tour of Switzerland. I won that as well. I had a really good, won like 3 stages, and won not just the yellow jersey, but the points jersey, the mountains jersey, and 3 stages, like I said. So, I went into the 85 Tour de France. It certainly is one of the favourites. Did okay. Didn't win a stage, but was put in a solid effort to finish 5th. It was a good year, and our team alone won like 3 or 4 stages. The Panasonic team, and I think one of the other riders even got the yellow jersey early on. So it was a great year for the team. Not just in the Tour de France, like I said, but heaps of other events, classics, and I think Eddie Plancard, won the Paris-Roubaix that year. So it was just possibly the winniest team on the circuit at that time. So that particular year we did very well. Yeah.
So obviously finishing 5th in the Tour de France, just an amazing achievement. And you did that twice, I believe. But looking back on it now, is there any sadness perhaps that you never won the Tour de France, considering you were one of the favourites in 1985 in particular?
It would have been nice to, it's every kid's dream, just to ride on a pro team or to do the Tour de France, but to win the Tour, you're the team leader, and you go into these events and you've got to believe in yourself, and because the team's believing in you. You can't, when you go into those events, you've got to go there. You've got to be convinced that you're going to win. You can't go in thinking, I'm going to finish 5th or I'm going to finish last or anything like that. I was, being paid to win. Paid for results, and you put pressure on yourself, and you do everything you can. But at the end of the day, you've got you've got 200 guys in the start line. You haven't got 200 winners there because a lot of them are domestics. But you've probably got 20 riders there, 30 riders who are potential winners. So everybody's trying to win. Unfortunately, there's only one winner, and people say that maybe if I'd had better support or better teams, but like I said, I was on a bloody crack team that year. But I just I don't think I was good enough. I couldn't have said that at the time. That's in hindsight. Because when you go into an event like that, you're going in believing you can win. You can't go into an event, thinking, "Oh, I'm not good enough." But in hindsight, it's easy to say, "Well, I obviously wasn't good enough." And it would have been nice. There'd never been a non-European win the Tour de France at that stage. You know, there wasn't a Cadel Evans, or there wasn't a Greg LeMond, or there wasn't, you know, there weren't you know, it was quite obscure to find non-Europeans over there, let alone, you know, winners. And so, yeah, it was great. You know, I mean, I guess people say that, you know, what I achieved, you know, sort of paved the way. So it gives people confidence, or, you know, not a pathway, but I guess it's a results pathway, you know, because, you know, if you go into an event that nobody's ever done before in Australia, for example, you know, I don't know, pick a sport, a non-Australian sport, I don't know.
Ice hockey.
Well, put it the other way around. A Frenchman that wants to play AFL.
Yeah.
And he's living in Paris, and he wants to come over here, and his dream is to get a Brownlow medal or something like that. You know, it's like, yeah. But once the first Frenchman's done it, then you'll see next year there'll be another one. You know, it's a bit like the Aussies when they go over and play, gridiron or American footy. You know, they have to be the first one. And once the first one gets over there and gets a job as a quarterback or a kicker or whatever, a goal kicker, then all of a sudden others aspire to do that. I mean, they mostly do it because the money they can get is ridiculous. But, you know, once the first one's done it, then, you know, the floodgates open. Now, I certainly wasn't the first Aussie to do the Tour de France. There are many others before me. But because I got the results, it gave belief to other riders behind me. You know, like riders like Cadel Evans, but, you know, there's a Stuart O'Grady's and the Robbie McEwens and all these other ones that, you know, they can get to do the Tour de France, but it's not just like guys before me that were really there just to push the guys while they're having a piss or getting their water bottles, but they actually aspire to get a result, to win a stage or to get a jersey or to win the bloody thing, you know, and you know what Cadel Evans has done is fantastic, and it you know, it's taken what I did to a whole new level. You know, not only can they get to do the Tour de France and to win a stage or get a jersey, but they can actually aspire to bloody win it because it's been done before by an Aussie, so it's not impossible. So yeah, so you know, I guess you know, in a way that's where that description of pioneer, you were talking about being a pioneer. I guess you know, that was my sort of contribution, or the reason why I'm called a pioneer. You know, but also I guess what Cadel has done is a pioneer as well, because he's sort of taken to that next step.
Yeah, and
big step.
Didn't we have Richie Porte? Did he finish third this year in the Tour?
Yes, he finished third. So
great finish.
Until, other than Cadel, who obviously won, but he also got second and he got third, I think. Then there was my result. So, with my the two fifth places. So, so now Richie's come in and done really well to get his third place. You know, just kind of a bit like how I did it, you know. You sort of come up in the last week and you just start climbing as other riders are starting to fatigue. You just sort of move up. But, yeah, you rode an excellent race.
Yeah, so I guess we're jumping ahead a bit here, but so 94 was your final year as a professional racer and retiring, and you capped off your career with the Commonwealth Games medal, another gold medal. Was that a nice little, I guess, starting your career with the Commonwealth Games and finishing it? It's a nice little, I guess, story.
Yeah, it's like... you know, you'd stop to the career sort of bookended. So it was how it started and how it finished. Yeah, it was a team time trial. Again, it was in Canada, so on Vancouver Island.
Nice bit of symmetry there.
Yeah. It was a great way to end the career, actually. And like I alluded to earlier, it was the first time professionals were allowed in to do the Commonwealth Games. So not that I had a bunch of my colleagues there. I sort of basically rolled up on the start line. It was a team time trial, so a 4-man time trial, different than the Tour de France, which is like 8-man. So this is 4-man, so it's small, 100 kilometres. And so it was on Vancouver Island, and it was get to the start, and I've got three other teammates who I'd never really met before. I'd read about them, but it wasn't like, they were all basically, from Melbourne or from Australia, and I just sort of come over from Europe, joined them for a few days, did the race, and then went back to Europe again. So I didn't really know who the guys were, whereas the others had been training and racing together, as young men, and I was like the old dog. I mean, I was 36 or something like that, no, old 20s, early 20s. In fact, might have even been teens. But they all continued on in their careers, and, within a year or 12 months, I started doing some commentary for TV and stuff, and, I was interviewing those guys with my old teammates. But yeah, we did very well. We went very fast. Team time trial, I think we sort of won a world record time, and got the gold medal, which was marvellous. It was a good way to end my career.
Yeah, it's good, like kind of taking the up-and-comers under your wing, just like you were 19, you won your first Commonwealth Games gold medal. As we said before, nice bit of symmetry. But speaking of young riders, you actually raced with Lance Armstrong, probably one of the most famous cyclists ever, if not the most famous, in his early days at Motorola. So can you tell us just about what he was like as a teammate and as a guy when he was a young man?
Yeah, no, he joined the team, I think, in '93. I'd seen him the year before racing in an event in America, and he was there on the national team. So he was there on the American national team, and I was there on the Motorola team. And the director of my team came and said, "Oh, there's this young guy, Lance Armstrong. He's a triathlete, but he's a strong bike rider, and he's have a look at him and see what you think. Do you think he'd be a good rider to have on the team?" At that stage, he was only 16 or 17, but he was a very good triathlete. He was like voted. He was voted in America as the most likely to succeed. Triathlete, most likely as a junior in the whole of America. So he was a pretty good talent. And I watched him, and the next year he came on board Motorola. Of course, this is all pre-cancer, and so he's very young. And the first time, you say hi in the bunch and stuff when you're racing along, but the first time, once he'd signed, I was in we were having a training camp in Santa Rosa, so San Francisco International Airport. I was just flying from Melbourne there, and the guys are coming from all over the world, and we're just going to go up the road to Santa Rosa. And so I'm first on the bus. I'm pretty buggered after the flight, and I'm right at the back of the team bus. And we pull up at the domestic terminal to pick up the next rider that came in. It was a young Lance, and I'd seen him the year before. And he sort of looked. He came in the front door, and the driver took his suitcase, and Lance walked straight down. He marched straight down the aisle towards me. And I just want to bloody rest, and he gets right in my face like this, and he goes, "Phil Anderson, I'm so happy to be on the team with you. I can't believe it. I've got a poster of you in my bloody bedroom," and he's just banging on. And I was like, "Oh, geez." Oh. And he just started rattling off results and all this sort of shit, rattling off my resume sort of thing, and he said, "Put it there, buddy, I'm Lance, I've only just started racing and pretty excited to be on the team with you, and I've requested to be your bloody roomie for the team meeting and for the training camp. I'm going to be there for a couple of weeks." I thought, God, 2 weeks of this. I just wanted to bloody put my feet up. And then, he rattles off. He said, "Oh, you've just gone through a messy divorce, haven't you? Oh, my mum's just bloody gone through those. Bloody awful, how did you manage?" I said, "Oh, I didn't want to bloody get into the personal shit. Didn't know him, And he said, my mum's coming to the training camp, like we're having a rest day. You should meet her. She's a bloody great girl, you know.
He's trying to set you up.
trying to set me up with his mum. So that was the first time I met Lance. You know, he put me in my place right away. But you know, I mean, we got to know each other pretty well, and you know, he just had a lot of energy, and kind of, you know, it was kind of not my twilight years, but towards the end of my career, and he kind of reminded me of possibly what I appeared like when I was a young kid, you know, like just enthusiastic and, you know, wanting to win everything, and you know, I remember we were at a race in America later that year. You know, we came back to race this. It was actually the national championships. Lance was going really well, and so we were there to support Lance. You know, and there was $1 million prize too. So it was financially, it was quite big stakes, and it was called the Triple Crown. And he won the first two races, and if you won the three, then you get $1 million, like, you know, from a sponsor, from, you know, the prize. And so he won the first two races, and so it was all the pressure on this third race. And of course, you know, everybody's trying to prevent him from winning it. And so we made a plan how we were going to race it. You know, he was going to wait until the last lap or something, and then he was going to attack. And we had to go up this really steep hill. We had to go up this really steep hill every lap. And, you know, that was the spot where he was going to attack. And I swear, on the very first lap we went up there, we had to go like 15 times. Lance would come up to me and say, "Phil, I feel good. I think I'm going to go next lap. I'm going to go." I said, "Lance, what did we talk about?" "Oh, yeah, I'm feeling good, you know." I said, "Just keep it easy. Take it easy." You know, we got another 14 times. And so every lap he came up to me and he asked me, you know, he told me, like, it was a steep bloody wall, you know, it was only a couple hundred metres long. It's called the Maniac Wall. It's in Philadelphia. And, you know, because we used to do this bloody race every year. He used to stand with showers, with hoses, and spray us all down. There was bloody topless ladies up there. It was bloody great crowds. And every lap. And finally, you know, it was like the penultimate lap. I said, "Lance, next lap, okay, just save everything for that last attack," you know. And you know, sure enough, the last lap he attacks, and you know, he's spinning away and looking over his shoulder, saying, "Oh, keep going, you know, you're already fucking nailed," you know. And so he went on, and he won. You know, he got, you know, 7 digits, $1 million. That's a whole other story. But anyway, it was funny. It was great. But yeah, just to see that power that he had and that youthfulness, you know, and it was, you know, it was terrible what happened to his career, and yeah, to see what became him was shocking, and what happened to the sport with the drugs. But anyway, you know, obviously he's retired now. But I don't think he doesn't have a moment of regret either. In fact, he does a really good podcast as well.
Yeah, he does. I'd definitely recommend that to anyone listening. It's definitely a good podcast.
Yeah,
maybe we'll have to get him on.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just
set us up, Phil.
Is it true what Phil said about your mum?
I was going to ask Phil. I was going to ask you. So obviously, Lance, being a young member of your team, was he your domestic? Was he the one pushing you up the hills while you had to piss?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. There's actually photos getting around through Ireland. Patrick Hill and Cork. Everybody lead me up the hill. Yeah, I used to piss on him. No, not really. I never did that, you know. I think you had to be there. You know, you got to go through that sort of schooling of getting pissed on, and you make sure that you never piss on it. I should have said that to my mates when I was pushing them up a bloody hill and going, "Yeah, you bastards, I'm going to piss on you tomorrow. You won't never do this again." Well, that's well learned, well taught anyway.
Sorry, I just want to quickly ask, are you still in contact with Lance? Do you still speak?
Look, I wouldn't not talk to him by any means. You know, I listen to his podcasts. You know, they're only on during the events, like, you know, the Tour de France. But now the Giro's just started. You know, it's just started in October, because the whole season, because the COVID things all all a bit muddled up. So I'll have to check and see if he's doing the sort of daily podcast. But yeah, I reckon we'll possibly catch up sometime. You know, we always remember Lance as a young, dynamic rider. You know, you see him now; he's still pretty fit. He's pretty buff and still works out and rides quite a bit. And so he's pretty fit, but he's going grey. You know, like I've got a bit of grey here. So, but yeah, it's good to see. You know, it's good to see that he's moved on. But I mean, yeah, what he did. You know, very disappointing. I mean, when, you know, we rode together, like the same team, roomies, you know, we were pretty close for about 2 or 3 years. And I never saw that side of him. I never saw, you know, any sort of drugs or usage or, you know, discussion of it. You know, we were pretty close. I reckon I would have been privy to anything like that, or any of the bullying and that. But, you know, he's a Texan, so he's kind of brash, so he can come over. You know, he can come over as a bit of a bully, I guess, or a loud mouth. You know, he's confident, doesn't like confidence, that's for sure. You know, like, I was glad I was on his team because, you know, you'd be embarrassed sometimes, you know, like even from day one. You know, like his very first race, you know, he'd be flipping the bird to riders, you know, who you should have respect for, you know. But yeah, he didn't care, you know, he was just like telling people to, you know, piss off and, you know. So maybe going back to your earlier question, you should ask Lance about whether there was much, you know, psychological plays which went on. So maybe he's an exception.
Now, in a perfect world for Lance, you might be his stepdad. So talking about post-career, do you have any kids yourself?
Yeah, I have 3 boys. They're all living in America because I had 2 marriages, both American women. So, yeah, Lauren and Matthew, they're in their 30s and live up in Seattle. Yeah, they're living up there and working up there successfully around the Seattle, so the northwest area. And my third son is over in the East Coast, upstate New York. So yeah, he's going to university over there. So I see them from time to time, speak to them from time to time. But yeah, they're you know, basically, well, the younger one grew up here pretty much with us here in Victoria, but and so he's only been over there about 3 or 4 years. But yeah, you know, I'm happily living down here with my partner Anne, and pretty quiet life down the coast. Still riding a couple of times a week, and doing quite a bit of gravel riding, sort of adventure riding, sort of going, you know, off into the wilderness with my bike. Sometimes it's just 2 hours, but other times it's, you know, for a week or two, you know, somewhere here in Australia. But yeah, I love sort of the, you know, the challenge of going along through places less travelled. You know, I've just come back from the northeast, where sort of going through Manfred Snowy River country up in the Alps, and you know, I mean, it's a bit challenging at the moment with the restrictions due to COVID, but living in the country, we're not living under the same restrictions as people living in Melbourne, for example. But so I feel very fortunate in that regard. But it's still preventing us from travelling overseas. So, you know, we have, you know, we take people overseas to watch different events. We have a little business. So we're slowly but surely pulling out of that and doing more domestic things here in Australia, sharing the beautiful area where we are down the Great Ocean Road, taking people out along here, and little sort of weekend camps and rides. Can be on the road or can be in the bitumen type rides on the Great Ocean Road. It's got to be a nice destination. But never enough hours in the day to do all these things.
Yeah, definitely. Because I've just noticed. You're 62, mate. You look like you're in your 40s. You're in phenomenal nick. A lot of people, I guess, post-career, I think in particular footy's the great one. Like they're these big, brash, fit men, and then they blow out post-career, but you're still as fit as ever. I was wondering, so you're obviously still cycling, and I was just wondering why was that? Because I know for me during this isolation period, I've started running a lot more, and I just feel like it's so good for mental health. It's such a good release, and not enough people actually get out there, go for a run, go for a bike ride, and I think it's awesome they're still doing that. Is that sort of just why, I guess, are you still so motivated at your age to still be cycling? Because I don't know, because it's a phenomenal effort at 62 to still go out for several rides a week.
Yeah, it's I try and exercise every day. Normally it's running, so I run maybe 5 times a week and run and ride a couple of times. So for me, if you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything, above anything else. The health's the most important thing, and I see people, fall on the wayside, whether it's former colleagues of mine that stopped and they're just totally flogged by the time they finish racing. The last thing they ever want to do is get back on a bike again. But in my immediately post-career, I didn't ride possibly very much in the first 12 months or, even 2 or 3 years, didn't ride much. Certainly nothing like now, but I was always exercising. I started running. As I said, I used to run as a kid. And then when I was racing, I never ran when I was racing, during my cycling career. But then the moment I stopped, the next day, I think I was out running. And it wasn't that I loved running, but I just find it's an efficient way to keep, sort of a base fitness. And now I run all the time, mostly in the bush, trail running. So snakes have just started coming out. I've just seen my first snake this morning, so it always makes you a little bit toey during the summer period. So you have to run on trails which are a little bit wider, so you can get a better view of what you're running. But yeah, so this morning I've been for a 2-hour ride, gravel ride, just up in the Otways here, and then I went for a hike for an hour and a half or 2.
That's phenomenal.
It's the weekend, so we've got friends here, so we're doing, we went for a hike, but yeah, a typical day would be an hour of exercise, trying to get maybe 7 or 8 hours sleep, and the rest of the time doing stuff around here in the office, or I've been doing a bit of trail building, which is nice, in the area around here, so I can run on.
And you've got your cycling tours, I believe, as well. We were talking a bit about that before the show. So do you want to give a bit of a plug to that? Tell us about that venture for you. Yeah,
well, Phil Anderson Cycling, we run tours every year, go through to France, the Tour of Italy, Tour of Spain, the 3 big grand tours. But what we want to do now is, and it's something which is, travel is changed, and COVID's really, changing all of that. So, we're looking at more domestic travel, or not really travel, but cycling experiences. The only one we've got up at the moment is just riding down here in the Otway, which is just a 2 or 3 day product, we'll call it, just where, stay in a really nice property overlooking the ocean, and rides through the Otways, gravel or bitumen. There's a couple of good bitumen routes you can do here, and there's heaps of gravel you can do, where you've got vistas of, overlooking the ocean and, and iconic country, and just beautiful down here. So, that's what we're doing now, but sort of semi-retired, I think you'd say. Especially that's how it is at the moment with COVID.
Yeah, I'd just like to touch on what we were discussing before. You're 62 and you're still doing all this exercise, and your cycling through your careers. I know a lot of people that did a lot of sports earlier on, like football, rugby, they tend to have sore knees, but you're 62, you just did 2 hours of a trail ride today and an hour and a half hike. Like, how have you kept your body in such good condition? Like, you didn't have ice baths earlier on in your career. Is there anything that you do now, like in terms of recovery, that you've been doing for the last couple of years? Maybe any little tips and secrets?
Not really. I mean, I guess you want to keep it fresh. You want to, don't want to get into sort of too much of a routine, so you kind of change things up a little bit. I also do a little bit of stretching. I've got a mate that's the personal trainer, and I'll have an ache or a pain, and I'll call him up, and he'll put me onto something. Just using some elastic, or for certain injuries or whatever. Like I said, health's the most important thing, and if you can, when you're racing, it's very structured, and you have there's a circuit or a calendar that you're on. This time of the year you're going to be doing that time of the year you're going to be doing that. Obviously, if all that stops, then you've got to. It's good to set new sort of goals or things to aim for, especially if you're like myself, where basically retired. Just don't want to bloody sit in the bloody front porch in the bloody rocking chair and wait to die. You want to do things. So I'm dying to go for a long ride, which will maybe go for a week or something like that. I've done it the last few years, and now I'm sort of thinking about which route I'm going to take, and I like to stop at pubs in the middle of nowhere and have lunch, and then get back on the bike and ride 100 kilometres, and you get in at nightfall, and you might stay at another pub for a couple of days and then move on. So I'm sort of thinking of this now of something which I'll possibly do in possibly December is good, just before Christmas, because then you escape all the Christmas frivolities. You don't have to go to boring, dinners and things like that. So you're missing in action. You go on a cycling odyssey, which takes you, interstate or something. Hopefully the border will open up. But so I'm through the last few years, I've been crossing the Alps. Sort of started closer to Melbourne and went up through actually where all the fires were, up Dargo and up that way, and and then last year went up through Angler's Rest and Benambra and up to Omeo and all and across to Corryong, and then this year I want to go a bit further east through Buckham, I think. So there were fires there this last summer. You go through Buckham and then go up towards Canberra and then cut over. So I'm gradually making my way towards the coastal border between New South Wales and Victoria. So in a couple of years I'll be over there, but I want to try and get every pass there is, because you go over, we've got the Alps there, which run along the border. So and gradually sort of reconnaissing, doing a recce of all these different entrances to New South Wales. But obviously, if things don't open up before December, I'll have to do a U-turn. So you set yourself these things to look forward to. So during COVID, I'm sort of thinking of that, and maybe my partner and I were thinking of maybe doing a shorter one, just going over to the Grampians or something like that. Just sort of get on our bikes and start riding there, and we get tired, we just find a motel and camp in there, and then push off the next day. And just do it on the bike. And because I'm always doing these things by myself or with a bloke, and she misses out, so it's good to do something with her.
Now, Phil and Lockie, we've been going on for a long, long time, and we've got a little last segment we like to do on the show. Lockie actually told me he's the number one fan of this segment before the pod, but what we're going to do... First
time I've heard it.
What we're going to do is I've put together a bit of a quiz vaguely relating to your career. So I'm going to be pitting you against Lockie, and it's a 5-question quiz. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes. We ready to go? So we'll start off with question 1, of course. So Phil, you were born on March 20. Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
Yep. So March 20, I'm not sure if you knew this, March 20 is World Sparrow Day. So I'm going to play some audio clips, and you have to tell me which one out of the 4 is the call of a house sparrow. Have you got that? Okay, so since...
This is right in my wheelhouse. Good luck, Phil. I study my sparrows closely.
This is number 2.
Yep, that's it.
Number
Let's
3.
go, sparrows.
Number 4. Okay, Phil, did you want to answer? You buzzed in before. Number 2?
It'd have to be 2, I reckon.
Number 2 is absolutely correct. He's got it. And you know what? I'll give you a bonus point if you can name what each one is.
Well, the first one was obviously a blue jay. Anybody that knows their birds knows that.
That would be incorrect. It's not blue jay.
It's the only bird I know.
All right. So the 4 birds were... So Phil was 1-0 up. But the 4 birds, the first one was a bald eagle. The second one was a house sparrow. The third one was a group of emperor penguins. And the fourth one was a common myna. So there you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the penguins would have stumped me, you know.
Yeah.
We have eagles here, and we obviously have sparrows about everywhere. Indian miners, I remember as a kid. Penguins, we have fairy penguins over the road here from time to time, but most of them get lost on their way to Antarctica. But the emperors, no, we don't have them down this way, so I haven't heard what their call was like.
Yeah, fair enough. But we'll move on to question 2. Phil got an early lead, 1-0 up. But question 2, so obviously Phil, short for Philip. So the name Philip is derived from the Greek Philippos, which actually means horse-loving or fond of horses. So I want you to tell me the lyrics to the chorus of Daryl Braithwaite's famous cover of the song The Horses.
I will be riding on the horses. Wait, no, is that it?
Buzz in first. We'll need someone to buzz in.
Wait, sorry, I've just gone ahead.
Phil, do you know the song?
Yeah, actually, that's it. So that's the way it's gonna be, little darling. We'll be riding on the horses. Yeah. Come on, give me that point.
Yeah. Can you finish off the chorus for me, and then I'll give you the point. You've halfway through. There's 2 more lines.
I can't do that, I'm afraid.
Oh, I'll give you the point. I'll give you the point anyway. So that's the way it's going to be, little darling. We'll be riding on the horses, yeah. Way up in the sky, little darling. And if you fall, I'll pick you up. So an absolute Aussie classic, that song. You found that song?
It was a classic, yeah. But damn if I can recall the lyrics.
Yeah.
I'm half Kiwi, so I'm not a true Australian, so that's why I probably didn't know it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll give you the point anyway. So it's 1-1. It's 1-1. So, of course, Phil, one of your teams that you raced for was Panasonic. You raced for Panasonic, of course. And the company Panasonic was founded in 1918 in Japan's second biggest city. What is this city?
Lockie, I'll buzz in. The second biggest city in Japan is Yokohama.
Oh, that's technically correct, but in this, I'm going to consider Yokohama part of Tokyo, which they sometimes do. I'll let you buzz in again if you want.
The second biggest city would be Osaka then.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct.
I was in Japan earlier this year, so that was right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, there you go. I was actually born in Tokyo. Yeah.
Mate, great place.
Yeah.
Have you been, Phil?
Yeah, we had the World Championships there in 90, I think. But, I wasn't there as a tourist. Just, remember small hotel rooms, big airport, fast trains, and a bit of suffering in the bike race. Other than that, I was glad to leave. But no, beautiful place to ride, though, and hope you get back there sometime.
Yeah.
Just not at a bike race.
I went there in the summer as well. It's probably the last place I'll be going overseas for a while. But Anyway, question 4. So I think we spoke right about 2 hours ago earlier in the podcast that you're a Trinity grammar boy. So another famous or semi-famous Trinity grammar boy is Thomas Main. So Thomas Main's the inventor of Milo. So this is the closest to the pin question. So per 100 grams, how much sugar does Milo contain? It's closest to the pin.
How many grams of sugar?
How many grams of sugar?
Per 100 grams.
100 grams of Milo, I think.
So 100 grams of Milo, how much sugar is in the 100 grams of Milo?
Well, it wouldn't be 200 grams, but I know pretty, pretty sweet. I don't know, maybe 75 grams.
Phil says 75.
Pretty
Lucky?
sweet.
I'm just thinking, I don't think over half the, it wouldn't be 3/4 sugar. I'd say it'd be a fair bit lower than that because there'd be a couple other ingredients. I'm going to say it is maybe just under 50%. I'll go 40.
It's very close. It's 43.6 grams per 100 grams. He's done very well there. 75.
Process of elimination.
Shooting a bit over there,
I
Phil.
just remember having spoonfuls of that when I was a kid and thinking how bloody sweet it is. It just tastes like 100% sugar.
Yeah. And what do you know? The inventor of Milo actually turned out to go to the same high school as you. So there's a lovely little parallel there. Yeah, but it is bloody sweet. Anyway, question 5. So I believe Lockie's got a 3-1 lead, but Phil could still win because question 5 is a who am I question. So I'm going to go down from 5 points all the way down to 1 point with a series of clues. And so once you buzz in, you can't buzz in again until the other person gets it wrong. Got that, guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, perfect. So, just buzz in with your name. Anyway, so this is who am I question. So for 5 points, I was born on the 8th of January, 1947 in London, the same city as you were born in, Phil, of course. But I think might be a bit tricky to get it from there, so I'll move on to the 4-point clue. I was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996. Shall I move on to the 3-point clue?
Yeah.
All right, so Phil has to get it here to win it outright. So, Phil, on your toes. We ready to go for 3 points? 11 of my albums have reached number 1, and I'm one of the best-selling music artists of all time.
Lockie.
Lockie?
I'll go
It's going early.
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash is incorrect. Phil, do you want to buzz in now? Have a stab? To win it outright?
96. He was inducted, was it?
Yeah, born in London in 1947.
47. So if he's 70, mid-70s. Hall of Fame. Hang on. 11 albums.
11 albums? No, sorry. 11 albums have reached number 1, but he's got more than 11 albums, I'd say.
Yeah. Not Elton John.
Elton John is incorrect. But so we'll move on to the 2-point clue. And Phil, we'll open it back up to both of you. And Phil, if you get it here, we'll go to a tie-break question because this podcast hasn't gone on for long enough. Anyway, for 2 points. So for 2 points, I died on the 10th of January 2016 after an 18-month battle with liver cancer. So died in 2016 at the age of 71. Lockie? Oh, sorry. I thought that was buzzing in, Lockie.
I've got no idea.
No.
Phil, you want to have a crack?
All right. So born in London. I'm trying to think who passed away in 2016.
So, passed away in 2016 from liver cancer. One of the best-selling music artists of all time in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Died at 71. Sorry, not 71, 69.
Okay. Mate, I've got no idea. Just go down to the 1-pointer and just do winner takes all, I reckon.
Okay, so Phil, you don't want to have a stab at the 2-pointer so you can go to a tiebreak? Are you sure?
Nah.
Okay.
I'll say, I've got no idea. Who would I be thinking
I'll
of?
go to the 1-point clue.
Yeah.
Okay. So for 1 point, Lockie's already won it, so a bit of a dead rubber. But for 1 point, I was born David Robert James, but used a stage name throughout my professional life.
Oh, it wasn't Mick Jagger, was it?
Not Mick Jagger. Born David Robert James. And he kept that first name. I'll say that as well.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. This is my best mate's favourite artist.
Say
God.
it. You've already won the quiz.
David Bowie.
David Bowie is absolutely correct.
Oh, mate, my mate's going to kill me. I remember as well when he passed away because we were in New Zealand together, and that's when I found out when he passed away, and he's a massive David Bowie fan and Prince. Those were his two favourite artists, and they died
in the same year, I think. Or, maybe a couple of years apart. You a fan of David Bowie, Phil?
Yeah, I've enjoyed some of his work over the years. Yeah, it's got a unique sound to it, that's for sure.
Definitely does. We've been going on a long, long time. I think we're going to split this into 2 parts, this podcast. But thank you very much for coming on, Phil. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. You've been super generous with your time, so thank you very much.
No worries, Harper. Lockie, it's nice. Enjoyed chatting with you too. It's been a great afternoon.
Lockie, how good was that?
Mate, that was absolutely awesome. When I first heard we were doing Phil Anderson, I didn't think we'd end up talking about pissing on Lance Armstrong, but here we are.
Yeah, exactly. It took some unusual turns, some really interesting turns, some funny turns. Phil Anderson, just a really great guy, gave us so much time, so generous with the time. We had to actually split it into 2 parts. It was that good, but I would not change a second of it.
100%. Now I reckon it's time we plug our socials, so you can find us at Facebook on Where Do We Begin?
And you can also find us facebook.com/WDWB pod, or check us out on Twitter and Instagram at WDWB pod. You can get some good content there. That is at WDWB pod. It's a bloody marvellous group of letters we've got going there. And also, if you do like the show, give us a 5-star review, or give us whatever review you want. And of course, spread the show by word of mouth, because that's a great way to share the podcast, eh?
100%. Just say your friends give you the aux cord in the car, you should play the podcast. Just say you're connected up to the speaker when you're at your mates, of course, in states outside of Victoria, play the podcast. Just say you control the music at work, well, play the podcast. It's amazing, and everybody will get around it, and it'd be massive for us. We want to get as many listeners as possible.
They do call this show the people magnet. So if you do put this on anywhere in public, or if you've got anyone else, people will just come flocking to you if they hear a glimpse of Where Do We Begin, because they just love the show that much. And, of course, they love the show. I reckon we've built up a really good list of guests recently. We've got about a bit more, over 20 episodes, and we've got some really good guests. So check out our back catalogue, whatever sport you're into, because we've got some really good content there. I'd definitely recommend that. Unfortunately, it's been a long episode this week, so we're not going to have any music this time, but we'll see you same time next week on Monday.
Thanks for listening.